The next question we would encourage you to think about before buying is, do you have really good job security? One of the things that makes us nervous in this amazing technological driven world that we're in is that people move a lot, right? Like, it's not uncommon for us to have clients who get a job in some other part of the country. And one of the very first things that they do is they get a job and they relocate and they immediately buy a house. And while that can work and that can be an okay thing, it can also be really, really risky. You want to make sure before you're signing on the dotted line, I'm going to pay for this piece of real estate for the next 15 years or for the next 30 years. I feel pretty confident that I'm going to be in the job that I'm in for long enough to pay for that, or that if I'm not going to be in this job, I will have the ability to be gainfully employed to be able to afford that mortgage. If you're in some like high-flying sales field or high-flying tech field and your compensation is all over the place and maybe the startup's going to make it or maybe the startup's not going to make it, buying real estate may not be the thing for you in this season unless you know that you can keep the payment inside the realm of affordability.
Well, I would kind of reverse engineer this the back way, and the fact that how stable is your job?
How stable?
Because
yeah,
that's something that I worry about with a lot of people. I mean, because I work with a lot of technology people, IT people, and we all know this is a rough year. If you work at any of these type of jobs, there's a lot of reduction in force going on. Yep. And here's a reality that I've seen. I live in a pretty nice neighborhood, and I see with some of my neighbors, to get to the levels of income some of these people have, if you lose your job, there's a chance that's such a senior position. It's not going to be a work from remote type situation. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are to get to replace the same level of income at that high, once you're beyond six figures and even up into executive level, you're going to relocate. It's so you need to think about how safe is my job, because more than likely if you lose your job, you buy into a high price of a living area for this new job, and then that job doesn't work out. It's not like you just go down the street and get another job at that price. There's a good chance you might have to move your whole family, and if you're getting squeezed into selling in a market that's just not as frothy and liquid as it's been in the last 2 to 3 years,
it's not ideal.
You're going to have a compounded negative impact. You're going to be looking for a job, plus having to make hard decisions, and desperate decisions are when we make bad mistakes because you make them out of you have to do it versus it's a good decision for you and your personal finances.
All right. So the next question we think you should ask, that you should answer before buying real estate, is how big is your emergency fund? And you may be thinking, oh no, guys, you're confused. You got a mistake here. When you buy real estate, we're talking about down payment money. We're not talking about emergency funds. No, we really mean how big is your emergency fund? Because oftentimes we know that when we're renting and something goes wrong or something breaks or something has to go get fixed, it's as easy as shooting off a quick email or making a quick phone call. It's on the landlord. But when you buy the house and all of a sudden the thing in the inspection got missed, or you didn't realize that the AC was on its last leg, or the roof has an issue you didn't know that it has, those repairs are now on you. People often underestimate, especially first-time home buyers, the true cost of owning a home is not just what goes into the closing table. It's what goes in the closing table plus all the stuff you have to take care of after the fact. So you want to make sure you have enough liquidity built up to protect yourself from getting too lean too fast.
Well, also when you move into a brand new home, there's probably going to be a desire to put new furniture in there.
Yep.
It's all back to the Diderot effect. When you get the new house, you're going to have new things that desire. I mean, heck, your first night you get there, you're probably going to go to Target and spend $450 on step ladders and cleaning supplies and others and toilet paper holders or whatever else that you have to put in. So pay attention. Just know emergency fund. Not only do you have to go beyond the down payment, you have to think about what is that first 6 months to a year of living in that new house going to cost me.
And then that is a perfect segue into the next question. Do you have an adequate down payment? Have you run the numbers to make sure that you're putting enough down on this home that the rest of the cost, if you're not paying in cash, is going to be affordable for you long term? Notice how many questions you had to answer about real estate before you actually got to the down payment question.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things. And we give a lot of flexibility on down payment. If this is your first home, we already know you have a lot of things working against you on the affordability with the interest rates as well as the rising costs. So we've always been consistent on this. We didn't have to wait for this post-pandemic period to give it to you, but 3 to 5% down on the first home is perfectly fine because we're just trying to get you into the game so that you can do this. Now, when you upgrade down the road, that's a 20% down payment. It's not something, so you better choose well on the first home, but we do try to give you some grace and flexibility so that you can actually make that decision without feeling like the market's running away from you because you can't come up with the right down payment.
Then the next question we want you to answer after do I have an adequate down payment is, do I have stable cash flow? Now, we already talked about job security. Do I feel reasonably assured that I'm going to have a job or be gainfully employed for the foreseeable future? Now it's stable cash flow. What other debt service do I have? Do I have a lot of student loans that I'm servicing? Do I have auto loan debt? Do I have credit card debt? Do I have enough left over at the end of the month, or do I have enough put aside at the beginning of the month that I know I'm going to keep my house inside of the affordability realm when it comes to satisfying that mortgage payment? Without stable cash flow coming in, it can be pretty crazy, pretty scary to now have a mortgage payment that's on the books that you don't have a choice. You got to pay it every month or else you go into a bad spot.
Well, it also lets you plan ahead on the cash flow because we still want to create inevitable automatic wealth, which means you have an automatic saving and investment plan that's going into place. If you only invest what's left over, that's going to be a policy of failure. But also, having a stable cash flow also goes into the fact, because when you and Daniel were talking about this earlier, is that a lot of times, especially if you're a younger person, your income is in the next 3 to 4 years could look completely different where it does now. So I would encourage you, we always talk about the 25% of your income is kind of your threshold or boundaries on that. I do think in these unique times where housing is expensive, you can look ahead as long as you're not getting overconfident and essentially working against yourself by, if you're making $55,000 a year, don't say in 3 years I'll be making $175,000. That's probably a little aggressive because you're trying to back into what you can afford. But I think it is completely reasonable to say, hey, if I'm making 55, I see big things going on at the company. I think I could be making 65, 70,000 plus this. You can plan ahead so that you're actually going where the ball is going without putting yourself too far ahead of your skis. How many analogies can I get into one statement? But but seriously, I think you'll see what I'm talking about is take into account the cash flow, the savings and investment plan, and where your career is going so you can get that perfect sweet spot on buying the right house for your family.
And then the last question we want you to answer before buying a house is, what's your credit score? If you're someone out there, especially with interest rates as high as they are right now, you want to have the best credit score possible so that you can get the best rate possible. Well, do you know what your credit score is? Do you know the 5 things that go into it? If you don't, go check us out on Instagram, go check us out on TikTok. We just recently did a reel showing you what are the 5 things that you need to work on. This can have a huge impact, can it, Brian?
Yeah, it definitely. You can get squeezed on this. I've made a lot of mistakes with my credit score. My first home, I'll just go ahead and I'll lay these out really quick. I opened a store credit card, disaster right before we were pulling the credit score.
Because you were going to furnish it. It was logical, right?
They offered me 10 to 15% discount. You offered me a deal on it. Back then, younger Brian, broke Brian was like, yeah, because I already felt like I was overpaying. Second thing I screwed up is I didn't understand how credit utilization and how the credit rating agencies looked at it. So I thought, what would make them look really good at me is if I had less access to debt.
I don't even need the debt credit card companies.
So I actually lowered some of my credit limits. I called and requested that they lower the credit limit, not understanding how credit scores worked. So it's don't make those mistakes. I've had to remind some of my coworkers as they're buying their first homes. I was like, because they're trying to go to the new credit cards and they want to close other credit cards that aren't being used. I'm like, if it's your oldest credit cards, do not close them, even if it is for an amusement park that you don't even go to anymore, like I did with the Six Flags credit card. It was my first one. I'm truly a cartoon character, but it is. But fortunately, I was able to change it into something else. But don't mess up those credit mistakes as you're getting into your home buying season.
So we think that these are 8 great questions that you can answer before buying a home. And if you can answer these questions well, you'll know, okay, yes, I should buy a home, whether the crash is coming or whether house prices are going to go up, and it's more dependent upon these factors. We thought these were so good, we wanted to create a free resource for you. So if you've not been to our resource page, go to moneyguy.com/resources, and you can download this home buying checklist. Maybe you have someone in your life, a child, a grandchild, a friend, a colleague thinking about buying a home, go download this, send them a copy of it, tell them about the show, have them listen to this so that even in this unique and difficult and trying home buying market, they can still make a wise, educated decision when it comes to their personal finance.
Yeah.